In 1988, I headed north on the Alaska Highway in my blue Dodge with $500, my golden retriever Bo, and a woman who had broken my heart. I left Utah to fulfill my dream of living in the last frontier, the home of the grizzly bears, wolves, and the dancing northern lights. I was drawn to this country by my heroes, Jack London, Robert Service, and Dick Proenneke. For them, Alaska was a land full of promise, a place where a man could eddy out of the human race and shape a life more in sync with his spirit. I saw Alaska as a place where I could hunt, fish, maybe build my own cabin, far away in the big wild woods. A place I could sidestep the modern world, like a channel that diverts from the mainstream, seeks its own way, and refuses to join the main river until the very end, and then only reluctantly. Now, almost 40 years later, I am returning home to Alaska after a few months down south, in the lower 48, as Alaskans like to call the rest of the United States. My heart aches to see my little cabin in the woods, and just like it was 40 years ago, I find myself feeling a bit freer, a little lighter as the shackles of the lower 48 loosen as I head north. I can pee off the road, howl at the moon, stretch my arms without bumping into others. Whether I was running away from something or to something 40 years ago is an open question. I was drawn north by some indescribable affliction that seemed to sprout during my early, soul-crushing years of Catholic school, complete with tight drab uniforms, alphabetical ordered rows, governed by surly nuns. I didn't know it then, but the nuns unwittingly awakened my love of nature, like when I skipped mandatory confession at Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic School, to instead float pistachio shells down the street rain gutters after a storm, dreaming what it would be like to be their navigator. When I returned to class, having committed the dual sins of going AWOL during confession and soiling my IHM monogram, the nuns gave me a taste of the hell they assured me was my destiny by whacking my wrists with a wooden ruler. Even today, when I walk past a Catholic church, I keep my hands and wrists deep in my pockets. John Muir said, "Never go to Alaska as a young man, because you'll never be satisfied with any other place as long as you live." It was the gospel truth. I had worked 2 previous summers in Alaska, one as a fishing guide in Bristol Bay when I was 19, and the other as a whitewater river guide just outside Denali National Park. These experiences brought me into wilderness so lovely and sublime, I fell into a spell I've never shaken off. After working in Denali, I vowed to return to Alaska, but I needed a grub stake and some marketable skills. I worked 2 years as a small-town newspaper editor, saving my money and falling in love with a girl who already had a boyfriend. My golden retriever Bo and I lived in an apartment, and during the day while I was at work, I left him alone in an outdoor kennel. One day I looked into his lonely maple eyes and promised him we would flee somewhere wild, where he could run through the woods, roll in dead things, and thrash through the rivers chasing salmon. To be a real dog, accompanying a real bark-still-on-him kind of man, as God and nature intended. The dream preoccupied every square inch of my thinking in 1988. I spent hours mesmerized by the blank spaces on Alaska maps or by Robert Service's poetry. I had only $500 to my name, but I decided I just had to move north. It was now or never. They say Alaska is a magnet for misfits, and it beckoned me away from the subdivisions with fast food, mortgages, and coronary dreams. I was too square a peg to fit into the round hole of the American dream. So I bided my time. Before I left, I got another full-time job at a ski resort liquor store, catering to stumbling, semi-intoxicated tourists in their slick ski jackets and beautiful hair who wanted to take their drinking to the next level. And a month or two later, I put in my notice and quit both my newspaper job and the liquor store. When I left Utah that May afternoon for Alaska, I felt a little like Moses headed to the Promised Land, a little like Huck Finn before rafting the Mississippi, a little like Robert Service, whose poems touched my heart and made my yearnings drift north. In many ways, I resembled the restless stampeders 100 years before me, drawn to prospects of gold and a life of riches. When I crossed into Canada, I realized there was no turning back. Canada was my Rubicon. I remember the quirky Canadian towns, the bakeries, coffee, and gentler spirits as I headed north. We were, in all some way, disenfranchised misfits, societal rejects, but that was okay. And it was along these stretches that I dreamed of living far off the beaten path in a cabin I built. I would hunt and fish, chop my own wood, and live free from the expectations of others. But a life built on simplicity takes a lot of hard work, and I was practically broke when I arrived in Alaska. I wound up working at the Anchorage Times in a dark Soviet-style building, staring at a pupil-popping computer, editing stories and writing headlines. I gained weight, and my stomach growled from too much fast food and spiritual and physical inertia. One day I fled Anchorage with Bo and drove along the Glen Highway. I yearned to one day take this road to a better life. I told a friend I started my little cabin in the woods fund, and he said, "Nah, that will never happen." Man, that pissed me off. I quit another newspaper job and moved to Kodiak Island, where I wrote about the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill and saw firsthand how powerful corporations sought to create their own narratives about the disaster through money and marketing. And I felt sad seeing beautiful wild creatures suffer from when they were caught in the oil spill. The industrial mayhem I sought to escape had caught up with me. I crossed the mighty Yukon, muscling its way through some of the wildest country I've ever seen. Now there's a river. I read about the Klondike Stampede in 1896 and the Stampeders' wild adventures romanticized by Robert Service and Jack London. "There's a land, have you seen it? It's the cussiest land that I know," was a memorable line from Robert Service's Spell of the Yukon, a poem I had memorized. I remember barely being able to catch my breath when I saw the Yukon, and I dreamed of one day floating this river. Back at my cabin, a wood boat sits in the woods that I hope to use in fulfilling this dream. I've done my share of long walks, and now I want a long float like my heroes Buzz Holmstrom, Lewis and Clark, and of course, Huck Finn. After settling into Kodiak life, I married the girl who had broken my heart and who had traveled with me to Alaska. For 2 long years in Anchorage, we completed our training to become teachers. At one point, we lived in a rundown apartment next door to a crack dealer, whose customers came at all hours, sometimes even knocking on my window. One morning, these interruptions made me so angry that I grabbed my pistol and walked to the door, bent on taking the law into my own hands. Luckily, my wife talked me down. We knew we needed to get out of the city. Our first teaching jobs were in a Yupik Eskimo village in western Alaska. And during that time, we saved enough money to buy 5 acres and then 5 more acres in the Copper Basin. We built a cabin, and there we raised our little family, a boy and a girl who grew up in the woods, living a life connected to moose, swans, and frogs. I enter Haines Junction. Not far away is the wildest river I have ever floated, the Tatshenshini, where my new wife and I, on our honeymoon float, borrowed a raft and floated 130 miles through some of the wildest country left on Earth. I remember thinking when I first came through Haines Junction and looked at Kluane Lake and the Sheep Cliffs and thought, now that's some real wild country. A guy could get lost in those mountains, shredded by a grizzly, and no one would ever know. And when I see a grizzly bear near Destruction Bay, I sense terror and beauty at the same time. After a bumpy ride past Beaver Creek, I enter Alaska. I am close to home, free at last. I am back home with my people, all of them, from the self-ordained constitutional experts whose arguments always lead back to the Second Amendment, to the conspiracy theorists shaking their chemtrails at the New World Order, or to the tree-hugger-hating guns and ammo cult, to the scary flavor-of-the-day evangelicals with smoldering eyes fondling the end times, to the kumbaya greenies and their armpit hair and hummus dip, all of whom kindly forgive my own sins as I do of them, because we will probably need each other when we get stuck in a ditch, or need help with firewood when the temperature drops to 40 below. My people. But mostly, I can't wait to be back in my little cabin, my fortress in the woods, the last stronghold against the slobbering industrial horde, armed with their bulldozers and calculators, their dominionist religion and data center wet dreams. We'll have none of that. Back to my cabin, to my not quite square cabinets that I built, my oak table, the wood stove on which we heated a galvanized tub to bathe our babies. So many memories that flowed from the decision to opt out of the real world, to find a different path, and a dream that survived menial work, poverty, rejection, drug dealers, brutal winters, behind-the-back jokes, and tests of self-reliance. I am home at last. My heart aches for this place. Alaska has changed a lot since I've lived here. Most of the people I befriended are long gone, as they surrendered a foolish dream for a more practical life. Alaska can be a lonely, desolate place, but it is still a refuge, a place where a lower 48 reject like me can be spit out by society and reinvent himself. At my cabin, the swans land on my pond, the snowshoe hares wander through the grass, a robin has built a nest on the side of my cabin, and a moose eats the willows out my front window. There is so much to do, but first I will build a fire, pour a cup of coffee, and sit on the porch and await the arrival of the trumpeter swans. And for the concerns of the rest of the world, please forgive me for sitting this one out. You see, I am home. I am home.